Prismo's been reading the copy of Jitterbug Perfume, so I'm on a break from reading it for the moment. It's good though. I'm really getting into it, enjoying it quite a bit. I actually think I need to read more Tom Robbins because I kind of dig this guy's high metaphorical style, and he has a lot to say. I don't love how he transcribes an ethnic dialect. It's like pretty Uncle Remus stuff, you know? Like it sounds, just, he didn't have to do that. 1986, this book. Pretty cool high fantasy novel. And, once you start to get the premise, it's about someone in the Middle Ages in Bohemia that decides to stop aging and kind of figures it out. And he has a companion who does the same. And they make this perfume, and the goat god Pan as a character. It's really interesting. It's very American Gods, is how it feels to me, but this would probably predate American Gods. But it's also kind of literary and like awake in like a Carlos Castaneda kind of way. It's an interesting book. It's totally drawn me into it. I feel silly that I ever was like, I can't get into this. I really think the secret to getting into a book is to read a lot up front, and I did not do that with this book. I read it in dribs and drabs, but I couldn't seem to get a block of time for a minute there. This will be the southwestern section of the bookcase review. Will people be excited? But today it's more Lake Powell Glen Canyon books. What? There's more? You just did a video that was a whole hour. Yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 videos, like 3 videos. Looked at all these. A couple of tall ones that are over there. I think at the end of all these Lake Powell Glen Canyon videos, I'll title it something like 5 straight hours of talking about Lake Powell Glen Canyon. I'll retitle all of them part 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Because there is a niche crowd that's super into these books and might like to know what's out there. And they probably have most of them already. Might like to be reminded of some of them. There are us scholars of the West out there. Okay. There's a new book out called Is a River Alive? And I'm like, finally, I want to read this. I've always felt like rivers are like a life form that we don't understand. I kind of feel that way about fire too. But it seems to be more than what Carl Sagan called the shearing of dusty plasma. That's like a scientific definition of fire. That's what that is. Now, that explanation needs an explanation. Plasma, the fifth state of matter. Dusty, which I think means it has impurities superficially on the surface or something. What's the surface mean in this case? I don't know. Impurities. And then shearing, cutting, severing. But rivers have always felt alive to me. I remember standing in the Kenai River many times in Alaska and just being like, and other rivers. And just feeling the life of the thing is crazy. I mean, if it ain't life, it's a convincing simulacrum. But rivers really aren't treated like that anymore. And you can make the defense. I mean, the amazing Bollywood movie Linga is a happy story about building a dam, and the dam saves the village. Humans are resourceful, and the desert is a hard place to live. And I kind of understand dams and reservoirs to some degree, but just the need for them in places and the potential of them. When I think of the Three Gorges Dam in China, that covered whole many ancient villages. It's a big number. I can't remember how many. That is before that. Lake Powell was the biggest, the longest human-made reservoir on the planet, and then the Three Gorges Dam replaced it. It's funny, when they were building the Three Gorges Dam and pouring the concrete, I was working on a traveling playground crew, and with a group of 3 contentious brothers driving all over the Intermountain West, building playgrounds at parks and schools. That was like my parents' family business. It was a little regional playground company called Extra Play that my dad later sold and is now like a $40 million company, is some number like that, that has business in all these territories. It's like a #1 playground builder. So anyway, I grew up in a family like that. I grew up playing in playground warehouses. It's been a great metaphor writing a memoir. I have an essay in it called How to Build a Playground, because that is kind of what life should be a little bit. And anyway, when I was a late adolescent, early young adult, I traveled around with that crew building playgrounds. Every time I did it, I swore it off, and then I get drawn back into it. But I had some interesting experiences. And why did I bring this up? Prisma, why did I bring it up? This is not a scratching post. Squirrel. be some weird drama going on outside. Living in an apartment is crazy. Prismo, this couch is not just a giant scratching post all over. Keeps finding new spots. Prismo, tell the world your message. What should the people know? We want to worship you, but what is our doctrine? Praise the kitty. Praise the kitty. Tomorrow's my daughter Willow's 12th birthday. This bag is full of things I need to unwrap and wrap. I wish I had known how expensive a Hunger Games box set was before I bought her this Target gift card. Because so I was walking around Barnes & Noble. There's a new trend in publishing. I swear it's new. It's painted sides of books all around with like patterns and images. It was like every other book at Barnes & Noble, every other new book, I swear. Certainly fiction. So that's happening. In old books, you sometimes see the different colors of paper, and that's usually because they use low quality paper and mixes of different kinds of paper. And that covered up the impurities, but it looked cool too. In really old books, it's even crazier. All swirly and fun. This is the leg of, I think, a coyote that was caught in a trap probably on Sierra Ladrones, the mountain of the thieves. And, well, just southwest of Albuquerque. You can see it from Albuquerque. I call it Albuquerque's neglected mountain, or Albuquerque's forgotten mountain. I once wrote an interesting article on it. I went through every post that was tagged with that mountain on it on Instagram and used them to quote from every book that mentions that mountain and every written source that I could find on it. And then the last sentence was like, and now I'm going to go out and see it myself. And something like that, but less cheesy, I hope. Squirrel, that's adorable what you're doing there. This cat is always like posing, I swear. So cute. 10 out of 10. Squirrel, you're the cutest gargoyle I've ever seen. Hello, kitty. My little then brother, now sister, and I used to sit on this couch and watch Saturday morning cartoons in the 80s and 90s. It's been reupholstered twice. I've talked about this in another video. All the stuff I found in here. Like this movie ticket from probably the early 90s. Man Theaters, that would have been in Durango, Colorado. There's a foresty theme. Man Theaters, huh? And the trees are reflected in water. That's nice. Is it, Mike? Is it nice? You're insane. Shut up. Stop talking to yourself and making these videos. But people like the videos. I should keep making them. No, they're dumb and stupid. Stop making them. But they bring joy to lonely shut-ins and hostages that hear them when YouTube autoplay plays them while they're tied up nearby. Oh, I remember why I brought up the playground stuff. So when we were building, when the Three Gorges Dam concrete was being poured, building playgrounds, and one week we got the word from every place we tried to get our concrete from that there's just no concrete to be had in America. Like there was none available anywhere. So it really messed the jobs up that we had for a while. It was crazy. And then I couldn't say I had canoed the circumference of the longest reservoir anymore because there was now a much longer one. The Three Gorges Dam made, what's that giant lake called now? I guess dams have a purpose, but I think they have an unfairly earned reputation as a clean power source because it ain't clean. You're like destroying a place, basically. Many creatures will die. Communities will be displaced. Natural wonders will be lost forever. Oh, and the 10,000 uranium mines from the free-for-all uranium boom government will buy from anybody 1950s and 60s. That's not good. No wonder I got Giardia. I'm going to get all kinds of stuff probably still. No, I willed it away. I cannot. I must not. Yeah, I drank Lake Powell water unfiltered for most of 6.5 months. People would tell me things like, the solution to pollution is dilution. But I was like, I don't know. And also houseboats would like empty their toilets into the lake sometimes, people would say. And I'm like, you're not supposed to do that. Don't do that. What, is it so difficult to like take it to the pump house at the marina? Sometimes terrible vacationers came to Lake Powell. I really saw that firsthand. Everyone was on vacation. I have a funny memory of my friend Ray, who was visiting for the Middle Third, and I running from a cave, being chased by like a mob of drunken middle-aged women, and we were not digging the vibe. It was like very aggressive. We're like, let's get out of here and go back to our tent. It's pretty funny in hindsight. Funnily, Ray did end up dating one of those people. This book is very moving. River No More. This book made me so sad that I didn't finish it for a long time. I was like, I just can't bear it. I really felt the aliveness of the river, so he really achieved something. It's a good book. I find in Glen Canyon and Lake Powell discussions, this book doesn't always get included. I think it's slightly lesser known, or like known by different crowds, like more academic crowds. But this is a pretty powerful one, and it's a great account of the Colorado River and like how it's basically plumbing now. See also the Rio Grande, pretty much every river except the Gila. At least the rivers around here. I mean, I don't know. When people talk about like technological optimization of the environment, like they talk about someday having complete control of the weather and what else? Like Dyson spheres around a star, like that would be the ultimate capturing all the energy in the closed system of a solar system, some sort of container around a star that made sure none of its light or energy was lost. Dams are a step on the way to all that, and is that the right direction to go? Because it really is kind of horrible what dams do. Like, as helpful as they seem to be in the West, they are poor containers of water because the evaporation rate is really high and the water drifts elsewhere very quickly. Most of like Lake Powell's evaporated water I hear ends up over Missouri. And the real tragedy is this picture here, the delta, the freaking delta, man. That the water just never gets there anymore. The Rio Grande's supposed to flow to the ocean. That's the circuit. You know, the Colorado is supposed to flow to the ocean. This is tragic. And they don't always now. And there's like these really wonderful marsh ecosystems like, you know, like New Orleans, where these estuaries are, where the river flows into the ocean and the water's brackish. Oh, that's the Navajo generating station. I camped right inside of it once in Page, Arizona, near the library in Page, and it's crazy. If you ever watched the movie Koyaanisqatsi, this is one of the early scenes, is panning and scanning around this. Because it's crazy, because the dam, here's another thing that made it not that clean of a source of energy, is the water for it was used right there by the dam to also power the Navajo generating station. And that's not a clean power plant. That like lowered the air quality and quality of life. Edward Abbey, that whole region, Edward Abbey went off about that plant in his book Down the River, and I applauded him. He talked about oh man, one time I was staying with this nice family in Page, Arizona, the Grahams, and I was going off. I had just read that Edward Abbey book, and I was like, and it's like all these different carcinogens, and it's done all this stuff to the cancer rates around here. And then like the guy in the family, the husband and father figure, he cleared his throat and he's all, I'm the plant manager. And it was super awkward. And I was like, well, you know, what do I know? I'm seriously an idiot. I just read one book and I was kind of worked up. Anyway, you and your family have been such great hosts. I don't know anything about power plants. No, I can't remember if I said that or what I said, but I was definitely backpedaling. This book made me viscerally sad. You know, I love in the movie Spirited Away that one of the characters remembers that he used to be a river. I'm like, that's just amazing. And he was, and the river takes the form of this like dragon god. It's incredible. That's such a good animated film. I always watch it with my kids, but I'm like, I'd probably watch it on my own. That's brilliant. I think Steven Spielberg called it the best animated movie ever. This is all over the place. But A River No More. I love the Colorado. Colorado loves to steal my sandals. Every time I step into Colorado, they're like, taking these. I mean, too thick to drink, too thin to plow, people said about the Colorado. The Colorado is such a special river. I got reacquainted with it recently, and I was just like, I love this river. Rio Grande's great, too. Desert rivers are, like, super special. But they're pretty much plumbing. I mean, nature persists, but it's in an altered form. Sort of Blade Runner prequel. Controlled and commodified, littered, polluted. They used to love giant author photos. don't know why. What's that add to the text? Like, aren't we trying to create the illusion of an Emersonian eye? Sometimes a little bit. I don't know. I guess it's fine. It's an experiment of sorts. No, because even if I look at that photo, then I don't know that I'm holding this image of this person in my head as I'm reading this necessarily. Maybe some people are. Yeah, this is a classic one. If you're reading about the Colorado River, dams, all of that stuff, Lake Powell, Glen Canyon Dam, big stories, major controversies. Only anger over Glen Canyon being dammed stopped the Grand Canyon from being dammed. Floyd Dominy was crazy. He wanted to dam the Grand Canyon. To him, it was just a big pit to be filled in. What an idiot. I mean, on another level, that reservoir would have been even more beautiful than Glen Canyon in some ways. But it's like Andy Warhol. It's pop art. It's unnatural. And again, it displaces and changes the world. And the Grand Canyon is full of ruins and amazing stuff that should not just be covered in water. No. However, Lake Mead already does go up into the lowest reaches of the Grand Canyon. So the Grand Canyon is technically dammed and flooded in one small part. There are reservoirs all along the Colorado River. There's several. Lake Havasu is on there. That's amazing. I mean, that whole area is amazing. Apparently, when I was 6 months old, my parents backpacked down to Havasu Falls and the Native American village that's down there. My dad sold them playground equipment. Wow. Like a school there or something, or park. I remember seeing pictures. And so, yeah, I was doing canyon trips at 6 months old in the Colorado River. I mean, my family really loved we would always go to the Grand Canyon growing up. And anytime a visitor came, we got to go to the Grand Canyon and to the Four Corners point where the four states meet, which I never hear people talk about anymore, and I haven't visited myself in decades. I was kind of demotivated to ever go there again when I heard that it's not actually the point of the Four Corners. Like, well, why did they put the monument there? It's like 1.5 miles off that way. It was too far to walk. Colorado's amazing. I love the Colorado. It was wild. The first time I saw northern Lake Powell without water in it, going back to Glen Canyon, it blew my mind. And I saw the Colorado River, and I got in the Colorado River. I wrote an article about it that was in Paddler magazine in ye olde ancient times. It's an interestingly composed cover. Just puts the images right out there. I don't have many books that look quite like that. That's something. We're now 17 minutes into this video, and we've looked at one book in this pile. I've got a problem, and I've got other stuff I really got to deal with. Behind on rent. Oh, God. I am going to edit this article. Stop procrastinating this. Open it up tomorrow, Mike. But tonight I went to night 2 of the film festival. There was some good stuff there. It's cool to see, on one level, art is self-expression, and it can't be done wrong. And so it's really cool to see these young creators and just what they make. But I saw a lot of technical and imaginative promise. There was a movie I was crying at. It was very moving about somebody too paralyzingly shy to make a friend. I'm like, that's a great topic too, And it had a happy ending. It was very moving. It was very sweet. And it was great to see these kids that I have seen walk through this school so many times and talked with, and been in classes where I was subbing and they were there. Being a long-term sub, it's kind of weird. You're like a ghost that is in a community and kind of half engaged with the community. There are students that think I'm cool. I've had 3 or 4 self-portraits given to me drawn by students. That's nice. I'm always trying to boost up the youth, and anyone that has any inclination toward the arts, I'm always like, yes, do it. Write that book. Make that music. I'm like Phil Spector in the studio with the Ramones. I get out a gun. I make threats. Come on, be successful. Metaphorically. I do not approve of Spector's methods. Okay, this book's way interesting. It's got a totally different scope than a lot of the Glen Canyon, Lake Powell books. I mean, isn't it? To me, it's interesting that even though all these books are on a topic, they're all kind of different. This one is fascinating for a bunch of reasons. One, it tells the story of the epic engineering feat of building Glen Canyon Dam in this remote sandstone canyon. And they built a whole city just to support the effort, Page, Arizona. Some magazine named it number 3 best small town in America. But what are their parameters? They have a street in Page called Church Row. It's just all churches. It's 30 churches along a street. I don't know, a bunch of churches. I walked down it when I was a bearded, crazy, talking to myself, tanned canoeist who had just reached the south end of the lake after months that included a month of complete solitude. Dreaming things like just sitting watching TV with my friends. Like, I was so desperate for society. Crazy. It was a neat social experiment. A fire that I passed through until I reached the shores of forever strange from here on out. But that dam's crazy huge. It's big. It's at the south end of the lake. It's what makes the lake. It's got a steel bridge that runs parallel to it. My dad and mom went on a date there to watch them build it in the late 50s. When they were BYU students. Yep, that's right. I wouldn't exist if it weren't for a Mormon college. I'm not bitter at all. And then my mom was on the lake when she was pregnant with me. I had all this like lore to it, even before I did that canoe trip. It's weird. Any place I've ever researched, I've found out all this stuff that I'm like connected to it. That's why I'm convinced that reality is like some sort of weird video game generated by our consciousnesses. I don't know. Why not? Sure. Definitely like a consciousness generated simulation. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it is a lot of repeating themes. When you write a book about your own life, you just like start to realize all the patterns and everything and the connections and like the smallness of everything. And then you go completely insane. So don't write memoirs. It'd be funny. I'll write one of those, the more you know, public spots for NBC or something about like, don't write about your own life. You'll go nuts. Just live your life in ignorance. Now you know. Anyway, this dam, it's giant. People have jumped off it to their deaths. Earth First once rolled a black plastic crack down the side of it. The whole thing almost broke in the 80s. Steve Bannon's book, Glen, Canyon, a novel, kind of gets into that, even though it's a novel. Steve, what's his name? Steve something. Maybe not what I said. But Glen Canyon, a novel, is the book. About someone who wants to blow up the dam with a nuclear bomb. The plot of the Monkey Wrench Gang is to blow up Glen Canyon Dam. More people have wanted to blow up this dam than almost anything else. That would be another story, is just, yeah. When I was on my canoe trip, one time I paddled into a little cove, because I was following the shoreline. I was always 4 or 5 feet away from the shoreline for the whole 2,000 miles almost. It did the whole shoreline, but it was almost 2,000 miles. And it said, blow the dam on a wall really big. And it was right before Y2K, so I was like, man, something crazy could happen. When I was driving to the lake, a man pulled me aside at a coffee shop that we stopped at. This was still in my hometown of Cedar Crest, New Mexico, at Don's Coffee Shop, R.I.P., near Howard Rice's trailer park, where the now wild peacocks roam, where my brother Rob, the author Obert Sky, used to live, with his wife Krista, my sister-in-law, and their kids when they were really young. Digression Central over here. But anyway, at that coffee shop, still in my hometown, with my canoe on my sister's car, I think it was like a red Jetta, this guy pulls me aside at the coffee shop, and he's all, after he'd heard what my trip was going to be, circumnavigating Lake Powell, he's all, if you want, I'll give you enough C4 to blow that dam right up. And at the time I was like, holy crap, no thanks. I'm going to pass on adding domestic terrorism to this trip. We'll see how Twitter radicalizes me in the future. No, I did not say that, but I could have. But later on I looked up C4, and there's no way this guy had enough C4 to blow up Glen Canyon Dam. What does he think? It's made out of like ceramics in a high school art class? Unless he's like got an underground C4 factory or something, which that's a story. Also, he just met me, so I could have called that bluff probably. But let me tell you why this book is so interesting. It's got a technique that I think about sometimes. So it's about a very controversial topic with polarized extreme sides on it. And he could have constantly been naming political parties, and it would have been a very like politically charged book and kind of read like a long form Huffington Post article or something. He left all of the political parties out, more like a long form High Country News article. But what he does instead is he leaves all those signifiers, Republican and Democrat, out until the very end. You get them in the last chapter. It's like good to know, and it is like a key fact and would have been a weird omission to leave out entirely. But I think it's a choice that really pays off because you find your loyalties shifting between the different sides, and it's very interesting, and you can kind of understand their motivations. I mean, this dam is at the center of a lot of stuff. I haven't just picked a random topic here, I don't think. Oh, that's that one in the south end that got covered. that had that exaggerated old woodcut of it. And this is the leafless forest where all the bark is black. Oh, but there are some weird things around there. Like there's smoking knolls up on the Kaparwitz Plateau, and where like underground coal fires have been burning forever and smoke keeps coming up out of the ground. I swear, I feel like I've camped on the moon. One night I camped in this all bleached out white area in one of the bays, and the bays were just crazy and glassy and endless and out in every direction. And it was like a moonscape, and the moon was out that night, and there was like some crazy like weather phenomena happening around it, like halos and, you know, crystal spears going off in every direction. It was amazing. I felt like I was on the moon. It was wild. I walked all over that night and regarded my fire from a million different angles. I'd often have my fires like right on the edge of the lake, you know, easy to put out. You know, leave no trace people often disapprove of fires, but you know what? It's old school. I'm old school. I gotta have a fire. Not always. I understand and respect certain camping rules, like during high fire risk times and so on. Anyway, this is a good book. It's interesting. It's different. It stood out from my other Glen Canyon Lake Powell readings. I think I only read it once, maybe twice. I've had so many different chapters of Lake Powell research because I worked on that book forever for a few years in the early 2000s. Had a 600-page book with a bunch of visuals that I could not get any test audiences to read anywhere. I just remembered someone contacted me through my podcast that wanted to republish it on their website or something, some Lake Powell group. I should find that message and get back to them. I don't think I ever got back to them. Because what I would say is, no, don't publish that old book. I don't even know what's in there. But you can publish this 200-page chapter that stands alone well. I wrote for my book called The Silence Underneath the Rain Dawn Bridge. And I also have another chapter about that trip around Lake Powell that's all the dreams that I had during that time. I wrote them all down. So it's like the night journey. That one's called On a Lake of Dreams. I tracked down the dream of an ancestor that the ancestor had in that area for that. And it's like a dream survey and analysis of a time. Found out some things about myself. Maybe I should just do really long videos for these Lake Powell books so that I can get past this subject, and the world that's not into this stuff will be grateful. Okay, this book's great. Have I ever read this all the way cover to cover? Definitely some of the chapters. This is a challenging work. This is like for engineers. It's not. It's for the general public, but it's written by engineers. And it is for academics. There's a chapter on the tamarisk, this invasive tree, that is top-notch and super essential, a key Lake Powell text. Because the tamarisks are the biggest reason, that, besides from water damage, that Glen Canyon will never really fully be able to return to what it was. There is a new species there that clogs all those canyons. They spend so much on Powell it's crazy because they become part of new ecosystems, but they take up a lot of extra water, and they put out salt in their roots. Their other name is salt cedar. Lake Powell, virgin flow to dynamo. I was so happy to score a copy of this at the Antique Mall. I couldn't believe it, but they had it. The Antique Mall is this great collection. I had checked this out from the library many times to read from it because it's such a useful... This is a key text on Lake Powell, Glen Canyon. You got to also get Gary Topping's Glen Canyon in the San Juan Country. I wish I had a copy of that. I know I used to have a copy of that. Why would I get rid of that? I wouldn't. Maybe I've only ever checked it out from the library, but it's as good as Glen Canyon Dammed, and as a history, maybe better. Like, it's a really thorough history of the area. Glen Canyon Dammed is like more analysis than just history. I don't know. I just feel like they have different ratios. Maybe that's my memory. Oh yeah, there's an example of the bathtub ring for when the water level goes low. I saw Rainbow Bridge again. Oh, beautiful petroglyphs. Petroglyphs are carved, pictographs are painted like pictures. Oh, there's Navajo Mountain. No. To go. Come back. Fuck, man. That's strange. I could have sworn I saw that. Well, oh, there it is. Yeah. Yeah, my friend and I tried to hike it to the top, but the road we were on just dead-ended, and it was not at the top. We tried to figure out an alternate way up. No dice. My friend Ray had it. So we turned around, made the trek back, flew down like Hermes. We found an ancient can of soda with a conical top. It said, "Now with dextrose, the amazing new energy sugar." I later looked it up online, and it was for sale on a website for $2,000, that exact same can. But we left it there. That's what the soda can museum in Tennessee valued it at. There is such a museum, apparently. But Navajo Mountain's amazing. One of my favorite books about the Colorado Plateau I don't own. I have at one point. Where is it? I would never get rid of it if I had it. Inscriptions of the Colorado Plateau. Yeah, maybe I actually looked at it in another video. No, that doesn't make sense. I love that book, though. It's so well illustrated and researched and interesting. But in that book, it has this kind of speculative bit of archaeology. They have this old black and white photo in the book of an Iberian inscription in a cave on this mountain. Iberia was what Spain and Portugal were a long time ago when put together. It would predate like all European contact if it's real. Unfortunately, the inscription itself is lost or possibly never existed, who knows. And all that exists is that photo and that one written thing about it. A kind of fringe archaeologist named Barry Fell has made it a cause of his at times. And I don't know. I feel like there must have been some more porous crossings between the continents back in the day. You know, Australia got populated somehow. It ain't that hard to cling to a log for dear life for a long time. Maybe it is. But I love the idea of a laccolith, a volcano that didn't erupt. It just became a bubble. And Navajo Mountain is so pleasing to the eye. This is not its best angle. Sometimes when you're a little farther off, you can really see the roundness of it, the pregnant stomach-like of it-ness of it. Head of Earth, it's Navajo name, not Cezanne. Just watch Planet of the Apes. You can see it in that, the original. I mean, the whole series is good, but Navajo Mountain's in that one. Also in the movie called The Greatest Story Ever Told, and in Britney Spears' music video, Not a Girl, Not Yet a Woman. Filmed all over there. People often misuse the area for its scenic value. Like the movie Evolution was filmed around there. I think that movie sucks. I've watched it so many times trying to like it because it's filmed all over there. It doesn't use the locations well at all. It finds the simplest, most accessible stuff. You can tell the people making that movie are lazy. They just don't know what's out there. But my main problem with comedies is when they're a laugh-free zone, you know. Then again, I don't know. I feel like a lot of art is subjective and mood-based. I mean, anyway, it's definitely a great location, that whole area out there. Paul Harvey loved to fish on Lake Powell, that old radio host guy. A lot of people had Paul Harvey stories. There's lore too. My book is a good collection of Lake Powell's lore, I think. I have a couple chapters where I go off on that. My chapter of my book, book one, of the giant memoir I've been working on forever. The Lake Powell chapter alone is over 200 pages, and there's a giant catfish. There's a Lake Powell monster that's like a ghost. Some good stuff. Once in a while, a piranha will turn up in it that someone will put in there. So I was told. You know, it's kind of crazy, but this is like literally the second John Krakauer book that kind of changed my life. Into the Wild made me move to Alaska when I was 17. And this was the final straw that made me leave the Mormon church in my early 20s. Kind of major. It's like, is John Krakauer making books just for me to help me get through my life? The book was so disturbing. I was on a road trip writing an article that I had some interest from American Heritage Magazine, this like history magazine. It was going to be about polygamist groups all around the West, and I was going to visit with them. And so I was visiting with Alex Joseph's family and on my way to another place and reading this. Alex Joseph's family is interesting because, like, they all seem fine. The women all have PhDs. They're a strange group. They've inspired, I'm trying to remember this outlaw country singer who was really inspired. He dedicated an album to them. Anyway, this is also now a Hulu miniseries with Andrew Garfield. I started watching it. It seems good. You can throw some in the back, like catch up, I think. This is kind of an interesting cover. It's not really a wraparound because look at the halves of it. The upper and lower halves kind of switch. Well, It's 3 different, but they're similar. That's interesting. And this image does seem to be continued down here. This is challenging my idea of a wraparound cover. It's a complete deconstruction, man. This guy's good. Cover design by John Fontana. Anyway, this is kind of calling the violent history of the Mormon Church to account that often gets left out of things. And the family-friendly, sanitized version of things. There's a good account of the Mountain Meadows Massacre in here. Many people, it's the only version they read of it, so I'm glad it exists. He does a lot of block quoting in this. I like to block quote too. I remember once reading it critically being like, he should write his own stuff. But now, as a nonfiction writer, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Of course if it's already written. Quote it directly. We need to reinvent a collection of information. Now, this author sent me a copy of this. I just asked him in a letter. I was like, I'll send you a copy of my book when it's done. And he's like, okay. And he sent it to me. That's so nice. It's pretty cool. He sent me another one too. But I really wanted this book and I couldn't find it anywhere. White Canyon, Remembering the Little Town at the Bottom of Lake Powell. This is a whole memoir about this little town. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's another thing Cass Height did that I mentioned the other day. He ran the ferry. Like the main thing. But it's crazy. I think I saw some of the foundations of White Canyon, or I saw the area where they would be when the lake was empty again. I have a vague memory of some concrete. I made many trips back to that area. But this is a really interesting and warm story. It's a good memoir. Paiute, great note. Tamarisk is not a native plant in the Southwest, and it has become a plague. A jungle growth of the hardy weed follows each and every watercourse, rudely taking over. The red bushes strangle the native willow and cottonwood and smother the grass. It was introduced from Turkey in the late 1800s by farmers who knew it was drought-resistant and grew fast. They thought it would provide shade and ground cover to help prevent erosion. They didn't expect it to be a cancer. Tamarack is everywhere now, and the Colorado River and all of its tributaries are choked with it. It has smothered everything. Four generations of Utahns don't remember what the country was like without it. Yeah, what a concise, good write-up of that. I also heard it came from Northern Africa and from Ireland, and was being cultivated in facilities that were mostly outdoor, though they were fenced, just fenced. You know, that's great for pollinating trees that are pollinated by the wind, right? Like, they're not going to respect the fence. And it quickly got out. I mean, if you read old cowboy accounts, they're always talking about quicksand and bogs and riverside muck and stuff. Not so once the tamarisk arrived, a.k.a. salt cedar, a.k.a. tamarack. This is the Dandy Crossing of the Colorado. Yeah, Dandy Crossing was Cass Height's famous crossing where he had his ferry. Dandy Crossing. And I remember paddling a canyon that had taken its name from that. It was a very cool experience, actually. There was a windstorm in it that blew me down like a pinball. I think that was the one. No, that was a different canyon. What am I talking about? You know how it is. Everything blurs together when your favorite activity is hitting yourself in the head with a rock. Dandy Crossing on the Colorado was almost due west of the present site of Height Marina. Near that towering butte, that's a very picturesque butte. I wrote once it looks like a crumpled fez or an upside-down crumpled paper cup. Or like a fez or like an upside-down crumpled paper cup. Jack Hiller's photographed in 1872. Yeah, I think I want to make movies about like historical times I'm interested in. It'd be so cool. I mean, I also want to make low-budget stuff, but maybe once, if I could get a budget, it'd be cool to do some period pieces. There's just so many interesting historical chapters that have not been recognized. I would love to have like an HBO show just about like the West. Like every season was a different era. You could totally do Game of Thrones with real Western history of North America. You got to have a few seasons of just indigenous eras. Seriously. I don't think you bring the Spanish in until even like season 4 or something. Because I would think you'd want to have like every major movement and era. Like it'd be cool to do like a Folsom and Clovis era chapter. In Clovis, New Mexico, this little flat town near the Air Force base, named for the first Christian king, famous for having a cheese factory, and for the recording studio where Buddy Holly recorded his hits with Norman Petty and Norman Petty's amazing wife. Watch that documentary about that studio. It's so great. She's like the most versatile musician. Listening to her play ragtime piano, incredible. What's her name? Let's say Vivian. I went to the second night of the student film festival. It was really good. It was moving. I already said this. Never mind. Another teacher though was like, 2 nights. That's too much. Come on. 5 days a week there. I gotta go to the Singer chance. No, but it's cool to support the young people in their creative endeavors. Sam Sappy. Pruden's story also throws cold water in the theory that Cass Hype ran a ferry boat before Arth Chaffin. Oh. Well, maybe Arth Chaffin ran the ferry, but he named it after Cass Hype. I think Arthur Chaffin was the father of Ned Chaffin, who was this amazing old cowboy in the area. I used to have a printout. I don't think I kept it. Of this really long interview with him. I had it bound, but it didn't survive the purge because it was like not a real book. It was a notebook, like a binder. Man, someone needs a muffler out there. Ugh. These little drug dealing motorcycles and ATVs. They wait for a message on Signal or Telegram and then they zip out. Wearing ski masks. This town's gotten a little crazy in parts. Of course, that's been going on for a long time. Ned Chaffin, in that written one, he's all, cows would be fat, big, big, pretty, so pretty, oh pretty. I used to quote that all the time. That was such a great quote. Cows would be fat, big cattle, big, pretty, so pretty, oh pretty. And the tacked up to a bulletin board forever. He had another one that was like, well, now you get you a fella who can string a whole fence in a day there, work all day and herd all them cattle and do all that stuff. Well, that's Herb Walker there. That's who that was. Crampton tells about Canyon Crescent City and the old rock chimney in his book, The Ghosts of Glen Canyon. But evidently he didn't know that the rock chimney marked the western shore of Dandy Crossing. It would have been an obvious thing for him to mention had he known. Like most other people, he assumed the crossing was down at the Hype Ferry site. Crampton also doesn't mention the rope-scarred old cedar post planted deep in the tamaracks, or the special features of the river currents near the mouth of North Wash. Ugh, it's late. What am I doing? Wasting my life? Yes, but I'm helping other people waste theirs too. No, this is kind of knowledge, right? A very roundabout way, a very fragmentary way, experimental way, you're getting a history of an area just through summaries of a bunch of books. It's kind of Borgesian, if you think about it. You could see him making up a fake book that was just descriptions of books on a subject. That it would be a story. Just all the summaries together. Okay, here's one of the Gregory Crampton books I don't know as well. Land of Living Rock. But it's one of his famous ones. Oh, this is this Grand Canyon one. I did read this. It's good. It's, when you love a place, you want to know about it. If you're me. Lieutenant Christmas Ives, who was one of the first white people to ever see it, was all, this is a barren hole in the ground, and I will doubtless be the last white man to ever see it. Oh, look at this. Marginalia from, where is this from? Xenia, Ohio, September 86. Nice. Oh, look at the Grand Canyon. It's so crazy. I love it. Read Burnt Water by Scott Thivany. That's a great book with a good account of the Grand Canyon. I was questioning whether this belonged in this section. This is more general Southwest, but it is Colorado Plateau, so I think it can stay. And I recently, it's like close enough. Canyon de Chelly. This can stay in, but that makes this more Colorado Plateau section than Glen Canyon section. It's a different area, but it's not that far away. It's made of the same ancient seafloor. Canyon de Chelly is amazing. Now it's like kind of protected as a sacred site. You can only walk to an overlooking it. But I remember walking back down to it and all around before that. And it's a pretty profound place. That's Spider Rock. I think it gets destroyed in a Transformers movie. And there's a Jeep commercial where there's a Jeep CGI'd on top of it. I think it's in the Avengers movies too. It's just like a very picturesque formation to put into the background of things. Also part of a lot of lore around there. You know, first time I went down there, I thought I'd gone back in time. An old Navajo woman walked by me with a little herd of sheep, and she was holding a stick, and they all had bells on, and I'm like, the sound of the bells carried wonderfully on the breeze. I just looked around and I couldn't believe my life. It was real. I mean, the Colorado Plateau does that to me over and over again. It's like hanging out with like a different level of geology. Yeah, I've had enough of the crust for a while. I'm going to go hang out down on the mantle. It's someplace else, man. Canyon de Chelly, though, is a very tragic site. This is where Kit Carson drove the Navajo from at the start of the long walk. He burned all their orchards and bricked up all their springs and killed all their animals. Killed anybody that didn't keep up. Kit Carson was not a good dude. I hate the apologetics that go out for him. He was doing some nasty biz. Nor was what's-his-name, Sumner, the guy from Albuquerque, South Valley, who was giving him the orders. That was not the answer. And as I started to point out in another video, my friend Stephen Usherman connected A to Z with his research and found out some amazing things. One, the internment camp, Bosque Redondo, had swastikas carved into the rocks around there. They meant something very different at the time. They were the whirling log symbol. Luck, the four directions, an ancient symbol. It's originated independently on a bunch of different continents. At least 3. Anyway, that internment camp inspired in part England's internment camps. And I don't know why they had internment camps. I don't know British history as well as I should. But then those British internment camps, maybe it was a wartime thing, inspired the Nazi concentration camps. Nicholson Baker points this out in his book, Human Smoke, The Beginnings of World War II, The End of Civilization. Great book. I recommend it so highly. Written in a concise, very readable vignette-ish style. Lots of white space around small blocks of text. So my friend Stephen Usherman, my old friend, pointed out in what he wrote, that meant there were swastikas over a camp that inspired the Nazi camps. History is pretty freaking weird. It's patterns and things that recur. Here's a unique thing to have in my collection. Maybe nobody else has this. This might be a one-of-a-kind thing. For all I know, the original's since been destroyed or lost. It's got a clamp binding. I met this guy in Las Cruces. He was the dad of somebody I knew. I think her name was Mindy. And he was like, when he heard I was working on a book about Lake Powell, Glen Canyon, he was all, I did a river trip down Glen Canyon before it was dammed, and we made a book about it. And so he gave me this from his scout troop, 1958. So they knew that the dam was going to make this place go away forever at that point. This great clampy binding that coffee shops used to offer, and I wish they still offered. Troop 159's Adventure on the Colorado by Arden E. Webb. So these all blah, blah, blah. So I just went to a copy shop, copied it all just as it was, full color. And maybe some of it's in black and white, but maybe it was in black and white then too. Glen Canyon was known for its gentle currents. Boy Scouts, unlike the Grand Canyon's waterway, which would murder the unprepared and untrained. Now with inflatable wrap boats, it's a different deal. Tapestry wall, that's a really famous wall. There's nothing for scale there, but that thing is huge. Even with Lake Powell, it was half that size, and it was huge. I kept singing it to the tune of Prophecy Soul from the Moody Blues. I'm not getting by it. Note, Mike Giles said their scoutmaster told them the Millers were polygamists. Larry Miller's home. See, I used to know all this stuff. It probably meant something to me. Let's read this again. Yeah, this is a crazy artifact. Facsimile of a typewritten 1958 book. A Moki hut. Moki is a now not used word anymore. Generally for Hopi. It means dead. Lake Canyon's amazing. I had a history there even before the canoe trip. I'd been there on a camping trip. A rappelling trip. Say what you will about scouts, but they got me out of the house to some cool places as a youngin'. Like 3 merit badges. I didn't care, and barely ever advanced in rank. I did not care. Let's go camping. Rainbow Bridge. A rainbow turned to stone. Look, you wrote a poem. Bathed in gold of desert sunshine, Nanazashi, born of Utah. That's it from underneath. This is a cool, like, documentary item. Really am lucky to have it. So it was Mike Giles. Yeah, that was Mindy's dad. I think. But I don't think that's who gave me this. Maybe. Who knows? Dr. Brasher. Hey, there's a UNM building named after a Dr. Brasher. I wonder. Fond farewell to a fine fellow. In Panguitch, we stopped again. I stopped in Panguitch to get gas. Just recently. I bought a quadruple shot coffee drink there. Okay. A river is the most human and companionable of all inanimate things. It has a life, a character, a voice of its own. And it is as full of good fellowship as a sugar maple is of sap. It can talk in various tones, loud or low, and of many subjects, grave and gay. For real company and friendship, there is nothing outside of the animal kingdom that is comparable to a river. Henry Van Dyke. Hey, that's great. So I think they did write about knowing the dam was coming in here, because that must have hung over their trip. Like, this place is so beautiful. There's a little Ahoy Mates, a little Moki Mac. And copied some handwritten note. Malcolm Moki Mac Ellingson. Something. Voted from a base in North Utah. Well, that's a cool thing I own. Glad I have it, I guess. Though all we are is dust in the wind, you know. Never forget. This was probably sold at marinas. Where did I get it? I just would, like, there was a while I would just buy off the internet anything that had Glen Canyon or Lake Powell in its title. Got some good pictures. What a wild area. There's the dam. There's Glen Canyon undammed right there. Whoa. That looks like the view from Navajo Mountain. Waterfalls got so crazy out there. Sometimes after a big rainstorm, you'd see like 10,000 waterfalls. They would just be coming off of every surface. One time, my friend Ray and I were just canoeing along, just exclaiming, screaming, just yelling. We couldn't believe it. Freaking out. What? It's too amazing. Yeah, and the views just went on forever. There were like too many levels for a view, I think I wrote in the journal once. It's like the mind can scarcely take it in. It's a pretty good photo. Okay, I'm glad I had this book. Yeah, the images help you get a sense of things. Rainbow Bridge. There are a lot of cool arches, but Rainbow Bridge is special. Rainbow turned to stone. It's amazing. And there's Navajo Mountain in the background. Look at that. It's not very big. It's tiny. This is from some publication series, huh? Metamorphosis. Oh, those, I mean, that was my life. 6.5 very long months that were really felt like much longer. Just canoeing that circumference every day. Okay, I guess. Cool. Glad I own that. Another Gregory Crampton book. He really is. I could do a whole video on just him. But I probably won't. The theme. He writes well of the Canyonlands and knows it well. It's funny, when David Brower, the head of the Sierra Club, was all, we didn't know to protect Glen Canyon. We'd never heard of it. He was all, I had already written several books, like 14 books or something on the area. You didn't know about it, David. He said something like that. I should read all his books, see Gregory Crampton, because this one I've read so much. Like, I had to get rid of my old copy. It was so beat up. I'm like, I can't have this in my collection. The whole spine was just warped duct tape. It was gross. It was beat up. It had been waterlogged from a million storms, but I read it so many times on that trip in so many ways. You know, whenever I get to a point, I'd read it. It's such a cool thing because it's like, you know, love goes to Glen Canyon. This was a key text of my trip. I spent a lot of time with a copy of this book. Yeah, I have 3 books by him, and that's cool. He celebrated the Colorado Plateau, and he was pretty cool. I think he wore a pith helmet like Hunter S. Thompson. This is another book that I bought at my last marina stop on Lake Powell while I was still on that trip. I bought this, Beyond the 100th Meridian by Wallace Stegner, Rainbow Trails. maybe something else, but definitely those three. 3 seems like a number I might have bought with the money I had and the reading time I had. But I met Stan Jones, as I've said in another video, and got to know him more through letters and tapes exchanged. Mr. Lake Powell, R.I.P. But he was a good fact finder and a real explorer, and found this idiosyncratic gig, being the guy that documents a rising reservoir and exploring its history and selling maps and books about it. There's a Glen Canyon literature and there's a Lake Powell literature. That's a different thing in a way. This is Lake Powell literature, even though it's probably full of Glen Canyon history too. I have read it more than once. It's the kind of book that you read, you know, when you're into a topic and spending time with that topic or researching it or going out there or whatever. A funny title. Ramblings by Boat and Boot, Lake Powell Country. A number of years ago, members of the Art Green family, originators of Wahweap Marina, suggested to the National Park Service that a small herd of buffalo might be placed on Antelope Island, within sight of the marina. That was the big island in Lake Powell. It's probably still there in the southern end. Such a herd, they reasoned, would offer boaters a unique facet of Arizona lore to add to the many sights along the spectacular shores of the lake. Raul Castro, then governor of Arizona, called the proposal a good idea, but it never came about. Park Service officials feared that for the safety of visitors who might be inclined to disembark from their boats and walk onto the island to photograph a calf whose mother would undoubtedly charge the intruder in defense of her young. I've also heard that a marina employee named Mike Smith, which is my name, in the 70s lived out there with his family and some animals. That's so funny to me. I learned that from Pat and Bob, the rangers who maintained the buoys on the lake when I was on that trip. Mike Smith, that's funny. There's another Mike Smith on this lake. Everett Ruiz. These are his letters. His letters are amazing. Here's a book about Everett Ruiz. Everett Ruiz is a great topic. Maybe I'll just do a whole video on Everett Ruiz sometime. I wonder how would that bring people to the channel? Probably would. I'm just getting really tired. I don't think I want to talk about Everett Ruiz now because I could talk about him for 9 hours. I'll do my first 9-hour video on that topic. Okay, I could talk about this one for 3 minutes. Hole in the Rock, that was a crazy side expedition the Mormon pioneers did where they went down this super steep defile with a series of platforms and pulleys to get to the lake, and it was very dangerous. I think a horse died. And they did blasting, and it was only used once. It was nuts. But it was the view from Hole in the Rock that made me do that trip. I went there with my then brother-in-law, Stuart, with this like Jeep group, the Lone Peak four-wheelers, and we went all over like the Paria River and these various desert rivers. It was pretty wild. We came upon some people who were really stuck, and then suddenly 40 Jeeps with winches and towing capabilities came around the corner. They're like, "You're the first people we've seen in hours. We can't believe it." They were out in that jiffy. But that view from up there was really a key factor in getting me on that trip. And this was a good book. I read a few books on Hole in the Rock. It's a very interesting story. There's fictional spin-offs. There's a beautiful fictional reimagining of the journals of... It's a weird book. It's by Ann Weiler Waka. It uses the journals of young women that were pioneers dancing near here at this dance hall rock. I'm getting tired. Anyway, there's a rock and there's a hole in it. It's great, whatever. Nothing really matters. So this is the guy who, someone's yelling ow outside. This is the other person to canoe around Lake Powell, though he didn't go around it the whole way. But he did have a crazy, huge adventure out there. And I'm glad this book exists and that he did that. He was my only predecessor that I know of. And I really have sought it out. I've asked everybody. I asked all the most Lake Powell connected people. I asked Stan Jones, Mr. Lake Powell. I asked Gary Ladd, the famous Lake Powell photographer. I asked Betty, who had worked at marinas there since the 70s. Worked at Dingling Rope Marina when I was there. Betty said her mom tried to do it in a motorboat, but could never do the fuel all the way around it. For a few memories of our trip to Powell, we thought you'd enjoy this. Ken, Mel, and Classy. Love you, Daddy. Hope your day is extra special. You're the best dad anyone could ask for. Love always, Missy. Oh. Poor Colin Warren. He had so much go wrong. I'll talk about that some other time. He's cool. Okay, so we looked at these. We looked at those and some others before. We still got to look at these. Otherwise, the balance of things will be out of whack. Next time on, Mike just looks at books. That's it. That's the whole channel. What? Responding to the comments on this channel is getting a little weird because I post a graffiti video once in a while. Yikes. Like, I feel like I have kind of a unique perspective in studying graffiti because I'm like looking at big picture stuff and I get all these like taggers that I've found it apparently. And they're just like, it's not gang stuff. I'm like, just because you're not doing it for that reason doesn't mean that exists. Are you saying gangs don't exist and they don't use graffiti to communicate ever? Give me a break. I've lived in Albuquerque forever. Obviously, there's just tagging crews that are just putting their names up. Not every 24 is just the year, people. Come on. Anytime you make a generalization, that like graffiti is constantly recoding itself. It's nimble. It's trying to be read by those that it wants to have read it and to not be read by everyone else. Anyway, it's tiresome responding to those comments. I genuinely feel like some of them are disinformation from people that have interests in anonymity. You never know who has what Google alert out for what. I've found in my years of writing and putting things out there. Some people are just really limited and can't imagine anything outside the scope of what they know. But I'm not like that. Okay, well, are you everybody? Hey, Mike, no offense, but you have a lot of books on Lake Powell. Yeah, and I actually did get rid of some during the purge. I don't think I kept every Lake Powell book. I know I didn't because I got rid of that Ned Chaffin interview, which was in a 3-ring binder, and a couple other janky ones. I think I might have also gotten rid of On the Loose, which is too bad, or else it's in a different section. That's a weird little artifact, but kind of poignant since one of them died afterward. On the Loose is a strange, like 60s counterculture object that's one part reflections on the damming of Glen Canyon. There's a photo of a woman looking sad, looking at the water rising. Tapestry wall. I thought I did have a copy of On the Loose, though. Oh, there's Down the River. Hey, that should be in... Oh, that's Baladin's Down the River. Charles Bowden. Lived in Magdalena, New Mexico. The Western Rider's Western Rider. People call him. I did think I had On the Loose, though. It's got a certain quality for it that justifies it. Object of a lost world, kind of. Some of the photos are striking. Sometimes it feels youthful and naive, which is fine. Sometimes it feels wise. But it's kind of florid. It's weird. Okay, America, go to bed. Well, and the world, whoever. Just drop what you're doing and go to sleep. Just don't make Ben Stiller angry when he's driving the bus. I don't think Ben Stiller has any connection with this book cover, but that looks so much like him to me, it's weird. I regret reading this book to my daughter Willow when it, under the title 5 We're Missing, when she was too young. She gave her kidnapping fears for a couple of years, pretty seriously. She begged to read it. It did not also help that the book was set in Albuquerque and the Sandia Mountains right around here. Creepy premise. What if the school bus driver just didn't stop? He took the last few kids. All right, next time we'll look at these books, and then I guess we'll be done looking at Lake Powell Glen Canyon books. And maybe I will do a C. Gregory Crampton video and an Everett Rose video. Sorry, did I wake you, Kitty? How you doing? How you doing, Kitty? What's up? All right, laters. All right, good night.